Welcome to the fifth episode in our video series. I'm Dr. David Van Nuys, co-author of the book, Is The Zodiac Speaking, Into the Mind of a Serial Killer. By now I'm going to assume you've seen my previous 4 YouTube installments. If you haven't, you should go back and see them first. And I want to say thanks to all of you who posted comments to keep going. So I will. In today's episode, rather than continue on with the Zodiac letters, I want to comment on the Zodiac movie and the Zodiac Task Force event which occurred the next day. Now, since the last episode, I got to see the Zodiac movie on the day it came out. And I know some people complained that the movie seemed too long, but I have to say for myself, I was thoroughly engrossed and it really held my interest, maybe because of my involvement in writing a book about the case. I think the movie did an excellent job of documenting the facts of the case, and they actually managed to squeeze in a lot of very complex information into a relatively short period of time. Now, one of the things the movie does very well is to capture the way this mystery takes over people's lives, the reporters, the police detectives, and others, and it's a mystery that continues to fascinate today to the point of obsession. I was pleased to see my co-author, Michael Kelleher, listed as a consultant in the closing credits. I would say a major flaw of the movie, from my point of view, is that it really presents a very strong case that the Zodiac was actually Arthur Lee Allen. And both from my point of view and from the point of view of my co-author, that's a flaw of the film because the evidence is entirely circumstantial. There's no DNA evidence, there's no fingerprint evidence, there's no witness. So it's far from being an open and shut case. And I know of at least 4 or 5 people who've developed equally compelling circumstantial cases against different suspects. Now, among those who dispute the Hollywood film's contention that Arthur Lee Allen was the Zodiac is my co-author, Michael Kelleher, who maybe I can interview in a future episode here on YouTube. I'd like to do that. Also, I've been in touch recently with Douglas Oswell, who's working on a new book which makes the case that Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, is the person who committed the Zodiac crimes. Now, I had an opportunity to hear some more Arthur Lee Allen doubters speak the day after the Zodiac movie premiere. I saw the movie on the day it premiered, and the next day there was an event held at a theater in San Francisco that was billed as the Zodiac Task Force. Now, about 100 to 150 people attended this Zodiac Task Force event. It was organized by Tom Voigt, who runs the web discussion group ZodiacKiller.com. And if you're interested in the Zodiac and you don't know this board, you should check it out. Tom Voigt has been an indefatigable Zodiac investigator, albeit an unofficial one, for some years now, and his board tends to be the hub of the Zodiac universe, if you will. I didn't realize that there had been previous Zodiac Task Force events. I think this was the 3rd one. And Tom, who I'd never met before in person, he sent me an email asking if I'd be willing to MC the event. So I was flattered and I said sure, but I really had no idea what to expect. I didn't know who was going to show up. I didn't know who I was going to be introducing. I didn't know, but maybe there'd be a bunch of weirdos. Well, I was pleasantly surprised. There were 5 speakers, each very knowledgeable and very articulate. Howard Davis was one of the speakers. He's the author of The Zodiac Manson Connection. That's a book. And he makes a compelling case for the possibility that Charles Manson was the mastermind of the Zodiac crime spree and that it was carried out by some members of the Manson family to promote his helter-skelter revolution. Davis has spent some years working on this theory, and you can find out more on his website at zodiacmurders.com. Another alternate suspect theory was put forth by Bill Baker, a retired sheriff's investigator from Santa Barbara County. While reworking a 1963 case of a teenage couple shot to death on a secluded beach, he became convinced that it was the same MO that the Zodiac used in the Lake Berryessa killings, and he continues to work on this case till this day. Another very articulate speaker was Michael Butterfield, who spent more than a decade on a forthcoming book that's supposed to come out later this year, titled Zodiac Death Machine. And then another speaker at this event was Nancy Slover, who was the switchboard operator for the Vallejo police. She received that first call from the Zodiac confessing to 2 different murderous attacks on teenage couples in Lovers' Lanes. And as with any traumatic experience, the memory of that conversation is indelibly burned into her mind. Finally, we heard from John Mikulinka, who premiered his film called Hunting the Zodiac. And this film features many of the amateur Zodiac investigators, and it explores the amazing power this mystery seems to have in taking over people's lives to the point of obsession. If you're interested, aside from the film, each of the presentations were fairly brief, and I recorded each of the speakers, and the whole thing comes to about an hour. I believe you can find the audio on the ZodiacKiller.com website. You might want to look for it there. Now, in the next episode, I'll go back to my psychological analysis of the Zodiac's letters. If you're interested in psychology, be sure to check out my podcast series, Shrink Wrap Radio. The link is at the bottom of your screen. Until next time.